There are stories that go beyond explanation, moments where the boundary between life and death fades, and something greater is revealed. This is one of those stories. If you're someone who feels there's more to this life, more than what we see, touch, or explain, then subscribe to Afterlife Witness and stay with us, because the story you're about to hear is only the beginning. Emily Grace Holloway was just 18 years old when her life ended. For a few brief minutes, it happened on the afternoon of April 17th during a hike along Eagle Ridge Trail in Colorado. She was a high school senior, someone who loved volleyball, scrolled too much on her phone, and stressed over finals, friendships, and a crush from biology class. Her parents had divorced when she was 9, but they maintained a peaceful relationship. Emily lived with her mother, a nurse, and her younger brother, Ethan, during the week. Weekends were spent at her dad's. On that Saturday, she was hiking with her best friend, Maddie. The sky was clear, the forecast perfect, but in the mountains, weather isn't always predictable. 2 miles into the trail, Emily suddenly felt tightness in her chest. She had mild asthma and had used her inhaler earlier, but this felt different, like something was pressing down on her chest, heavy and unfamiliar. She told Maddie she needed to stop and rest. Then everything went black. But Emily didn't feel like she'd fallen unconscious. What she experienced was something else entirely. She later described it as floating, weightless, as if suspended in a pool without water. The pain had vanished. Below her, she could see Maddie, panicked, kneeling beside her body, trying to wake her and yelling into her phone for help. Emily tried to speak, but no sound came. It was like watching herself from above, as if her spirit had gently separated from her body. Then came a soft, upward pull. Not forceful, more like someone reaching down to help her out of the water. The air around her began to glow, not like harsh sunlight, but a warm, colored light, soft and surrounding, like rays filtering through stained glass. She passed through what felt like a tunnel, long, still, and quiet. But there was no fear. For the first time in her life, she felt completely safe. Completely. Known, completely at peace. At the end of the tunnel was a light unlike anything she had ever seen, and in the middle of it, someone stood waiting. It was Jesus. Emily hadn't been especially religious. She only attended church occasionally, mostly on holidays with her grandmother. But the moment she saw him, she knew exactly who he was. He didn't look exactly like the paintings, but he was tall, radiant, and his eyes held something she couldn't describe, a love deeper than anything she'd ever imagined. His face was kind yet powerful, not in a way that frightened, but in a way that felt like he knew every part of her, and still welcomed her. When he spoke, his voice wasn't booming. It was calm and clear, not heard through her ears, but felt within her chest. He said her name, Emily, and when he did, she cried. Not from sadness, but from release, like something heavy she'd been carrying her whole life had suddenly lifted. She asked if she had died. He answered gently, "Your body is between worlds right now, but I wanted to speak with you." He extended his hand to her, and when she took it, she felt a wave of love that overwhelmed everything else. Then came a review of her life, not just the major memories, but the small, forgotten moments. She saw herself helping an elderly woman pick up groceries when she was 8, sitting with a crying girl in the school bathroom, giving her lunch to a homeless man on the way to school. She also saw her mistakes, the times she hurt her brother, gossiped about friends, lied to her mother, and yet, through all of it, he loved her entirely. His love wasn't conditional. It didn't rise and fall based on her choices. It simply was. Then Jesus said there was something she needed to see, something important to understand and share. The scene around them changed. They were standing on what looked like clouds. solid beneath their feet. Below, a living map of Earth unfolded before them. "I'm going to show you 3 events," he said, "that will take place before the year 2030, not to cause fear, but to prepare hearts." The first vision unfolded before Emily and Jesus, as if they were watching through a living window. She saw oceans rising, storms, larger, stronger, more violent than anything she had seen on the news. Water surged through familiar cities, Miami, New York, Tokyo. But it wasn't just what she saw, it was what she felt, a wave of fear, not her own, but the collective fear of the people living through it, mothers clinging to children, strangers reaching for help, entire cities holding their breath. Then Jesus spoke softly beside her. "The earth groans," he said, "as creation strains. What you're seeing is the acceleration of climate patterns. The waters will rise faster than expected. Island nations will cry out first, but many shores will follow." Tears began to stream down Emily's face. "All those people," she whispered. "Watch closely," he said, and she did. Because within the destruction, something unexpected began to appear. Hope. People helped one another. Strangers opened their homes. Nations that had long stood as enemies began to work together. Churches became shelters. Communities became lifelines. It wasn't only a picture of disaster, it was humanity at its best. In great trial, Jesus said, comes unity that comfort could never bring. Hearts will turn toward one another, and in that turning, many will also find me. Then, without a word, the vision changed. The second scene showed massive blackouts. One by one, cities went dark. Phones, computers, power grids, silent. People were left without access to anything electronic. There was no warning, no time to prepare. Jesus said, "The systems man has built have become both tower and crutch, but a time is coming when they will falter for a season. What was built on pride will be humbled." At first, Emily saw panic, people rushing, confused, afraid. But soon something shifted. She saw families stepping outside, neighbors meeting for the first time, people sharing food, playing music, telling stories, children laughing, not at screens but in open air. In the dark, Jesus said, people will find each other. When the lights of man go out, my light shines brighter. Many souls who couldn't hear me through the noise will find me in the silence. Then came the third vision, the most difficult of all. Emily saw illness spreading. It wasn't like the pandemic the world had recently endured. This was something different. People were afraid to be near one another. Again, but this time, the fear itself seemed darker, manipulated, intensified, as if it were being used. Jesus spoke again. A new illness will emerge, but the greater sickness will be fear, and how it divides hearts from one another. Some will use this fear to control and separate my children, but even in this, hope will rise. And in the midst of it, Emily saw it. People refusing to let fear separate them. Doctors and nurses working tirelessly. Communities inventing new ways to care for one another while remaining cautious. And above all, prayer, not in buildings but in homes, in hospital rooms, in parks and open spaces, a quiet wave of prayer rising across the world. In each of these events, Jesus said, turning to her, remember what you're seeing. It's not the disaster that defines the time, it's how hearts respond. He placed his hands on Emily's shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. In that moment, she felt as though he could see every corner of her soul. I'm not showing you these things to frighten you, or anyone else, he said gently. Fear is not from me. Jesus told Emily that he was showing her these things for a reason. I'm showing you, he said, so you can tell others. There is hope in preparation, not just preparation of supplies, but of hearts. Emily nodded, though her heart was heavy with what she had seen. There's something else you need to understand, he continued. These events are not my punishment. They are the consequences of choices humanity has made, of walking away from caring for my creation and for one another. And yet, he said even in the brokenness, he would use those moments to call people back to what truly matters: love, community, compassion, and faith. Then he took her hand once again and led her to something extraordinary. Before them stood a vast wall of light. Within it pulsed millions of golden threads, all interconnected, shimmering and alive. Each one is a prayer, he explained. Watch what happens when just one person prays. He touched one of the threads. Instantly it lit up, and the light traveled along its connections, illuminating hundreds, then thousands of others. The effect spread like ripples across a still lake. "This was your prayer," he said, "the one you whispered last month for your friend Zoe." Emily gasped. "But nothing happened," she said. "She's still struggling." Jesus smiled gently. "Nothing you could see changed. But look again." He showed her how that prayer had given Zoe just enough hope to make it through her darkest night, how it moved her mother's heart to check on her at the exact moment she needed someone, how it inspired her counselor with the right words, and even softened Emily's own heart, giving her the patience to sit beside her friend when she was needed most. "A single sincere prayer," he said, "creates ripples across dimensions you cannot see." Then he added, "In the times to come, prayer will not just be important, it will be essential." They stood in silence. The peace around her was beyond anything she had ever known. Complete, whole, timeless. Emily didn't want to leave. She looked at him and asked quietly, "Can I stay with you?" "I don't want to go back." His eyes softened with deep tenderness. "My sweet child," he said, "I understand. This is home, your true home, and one day you will return here, but for now, your purpose is not finished." She asked what that purpose was. "To be a light," he answered simply, "to share what you've seen, to help others prepare their hearts, not in fear, but in hope." He continued, "Many will face these times afraid and alone, but if voices like yours do not speak of what lies beyond the suffering, they may not know that there is more." Tears filled Emily's eyes again. The thought of leaving that peace, that love, was unbearable. "I won't leave you," he promised, gently brushing away a tear from her cheek. "Even when you can't see me like this, I am with you, always. And now that you've been here, a part of you will always remember the way home." Then he embraced her. It was like being wrapped in pure, perfect love. It felt like every good hug she'd ever received from her mom, her dad, her grandparents, all woven together into something infinitely deeper. She felt his love pour into every broken part of her. Then he whispered, "It's time." "I'm scared," Emily admitted. "I know," he said, "but courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move forward, even with fear present. And you won't be alone." There was a rushing sensation, as if Emily were being pulled backward at incredible speed. Then pain, a crushing, burning pain in her chest. Voices surrounded her, urgent and professional. "We've got a pulse," someone shouted. She was in an ambulance, an oxygen mask pressed against her face. Sirens wailed in the background. Emily tried to speak, to tell them what she had seen, but no words would come. Her body ached in every fiber. Her chest felt like it had been shattered. A paramedic leaned over her and gently said, "You're going to be okay, sweetheart. You're back with us now. Back, but forever changed." Emily spent 3 days in the hospital. The doctors said she had suffered a sudden cardiac arrest caused by an undiagnosed heart condition. They called it a miracle that her best friend Maddie knew CPR from her lifeguard training. A miracle that it was performed in time. She had been clinically dead for nearly 4 minutes. 4 minutes here, but to Emily it had felt like hours, maybe more, there. Her cardiologist stood at the foot of her hospital bed, shaking his head in disbelief. In 23 years of practice, He said, "I've never seen someone your age recover this quickly from a cardiac arrest, especially with no brain damage after that long without oxygen. You're quite the medical mystery, Emily." Her mother barely left her side. She slept in the hospital chair, only stepping out briefly for coffee. During one of those moments, Emily told her father the truth, not just the medical facts, but the real story. She braced herself. Her dad was the rational one, the skeptic. She feared he wouldn't believe her. But when she finished speaking, he was quiet for a long time. Then gently, he took her hand. "When I was in college," he said, "my roommate and I were in a terrible car accident. I never told you this because, well, it sounds crazy, but I had an experience too, not the same as yours. But I saw something beyond this life. I've never forgotten it." Tears welled in his eyes. "I've spent 20 years trying to make sense of it, trying to fit back into normal life, and here you are, having seen it too." It was then that Emily understood. These experiences weren't as rare as they seemed. People simply didn't talk about them, not because they didn't happen, but because they were afraid. Afraid of judgment, of sounding delusional. When Emily finally returned home, the world looked different. Colors were more vivid, the sky seemed more alive. Even the small annoyances, her brother's loud video games, piles of homework, didn't bother her anymore. She began to notice. People really noticed them. The cashier with tired eyes, the kid sitting alone at lunch, the elderly neighbor struggling to wheel her trash cans. She began to dream, but these weren't just dreams. They felt like visitations. In them, Jesus continued to show her things, explain what was to come. Not everything made sense yet. Some things, she knew, would only be understood when the time was right. She told Maddie everything. Maddie cried and told her she had been praying the entire time she performed CPR, begging God not to take her. Emily wondered if her friend's desperate prayers were some of the golden threads she had seen, the ripples that moved unseen through time and hearts. At school, rumors spread. Some classmates asked questions, others avoided her, a few made jokes, but Emily didn't care anymore. When you've been wrapped in perfect love, the opinions of others lose their weight. Her mom found her a new cardiologist. A device was implanted in her chest, one that could restart her heart if it ever stopped again. Doctors said Emily could live a normal life, with some precautions, but the truth was, normal no longer fit. Not after what she had seen. In the months that followed, she started a small group that met weekly in her basement. At first, it was just Maddie, 2 girls from school, and her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who had lost her husband the year before. They talked about what really mattered, about preparing not just emergency kits, but hearts, about noticing God in everyday things. That small circle slowly grew. Now, around 15 people gathered, praying for the world, for each other, for peace. Emily didn't share everything she had seen. Some visions, she knew, needed the right moment. Some people just weren't ready yet, and that was okay. Jesus hadn't shown her these things to frighten anyone or to make her seem special. He had shown her so she could bring hope, to help others rediscover purpose, even in times of darkness. So if you're listening to this story and feeling afraid about the future, please don't be. That's not the message she carried back. What Emily came to understand in those moments beyond this world was that love is stronger than disaster, stronger than hardship, stronger than fear. The events she saw coming, they weren't the end of the story. They were part of a greater picture, one we can't fully grasp from here. What matters most isn't stockpiling supplies, though preparation has its place. What matters is stockpiling love, strengthening our bonds with one another, finding or rediscovering faith. Because when the waters rise, when the lights go out, when fear tries to pull us apart, love is what will save us, not just the love we offer each other, but the divine love that once held Emily. and still holds every single one of us, whether we recognize it or not. Her name is Emily Grace Holloway, and she came back to remind us we're never as alone as we think.